In this session, we'll be talking about distributions and channel management. So this is, again, one of the 4 Ps of the marketing mix. So far, we've talked about products, and we've also talked about pricing. Now we'll be talking about place, which is about distributions and channels. So what is distribution? To make a long story short, so once a company has manufactured a product, it has to make the product available for customers to purchase it. And distribution basically implies that the manufacturer has to make the product accessible for customers so that they can conveniently buy the product. So a formal definition of distribution would look like the following. Sets of interdependent organizations involved in the process of making a product or service available for use or consumption. So in this definition, there is one word that sticks out, that is very, very important, that makes this definition very interesting. And that word is none other than, in the first line, interdependent. Because distribution involves 2 or more companies working together to make the flow of products or services possible so that it's reachable and it is more accessible to customers, these networks or these sets of companies have to be interdependent on one another. So a manufacturer has to be interdependent. They have to be dependent on a distributor a lot of the times, or a wholesaler or a retailer. And at the same time, vice versa, a retailer has to be dependent on the manufacturer for them to supply the products at the right time, at the right price, so that these distributors or intermediaries will make the product available for the end customers that want to purchase them. So this word interdependent really makes this definition of distribution important. So distribution compared to the other 4 Ps, which again, the 4 Ps, if we do a quick review, they're product, price, place, and promotion, which we haven't talked about, but which we will shortly. The place here, the distribution, is a lot more difficult. It's a lot more challenged to change and have control over in a relatively short period of time. And if you think about it, the reason for why it's more difficult to change and alter a distribution strategy more so than the other Ps is because, based on our previous slide's definition of distribution, distribution implies working with another company to make the flow of products and services possible. So distribution typically involves working in collaboration with other companies. Therefore, unlike product, where most of it is under the control of the manufacturer, using R&D, using product development teams, they're able to influence and control how much resources to allocate, or pricing, where companies have a lot of control over how much they want to charge, or promotions. Distribution is a lot more challenging because they need the commitment, they need the cooperation of these intermediaries that are willing to work in tandem, where they have mutually agreeable goals to make the flow of products and services available to customers. And therefore, it is a lot more challenging and difficult to change a distribution strategy in a relatively short period of time. It takes a lot of effort, it takes a lot of negotiation, it takes a lot of buy-in from both parties to be on the same page and to change an existing distribution strategy to a different one. So what is the function of distribution? This slide shows you, going from left to right, a typical flow of how products will be distributed from a manufacturer to an end consumer, where the product goes from the manufacturer to the wholesaler to the distributor to the retailer and then finally to the consumer. So there's an old saying that you can take away the middlemen, the intermediaries, in other words, the wholesalers or the distributors or the retailers, but eventually you can't take away the function of the middleman because somebody has to perform that function on behalf of those intermediaries. So if a manufacturer does not want to use these intermediaries to push their products down to the end consumer, but maybe wants to sell directly, to the end consumer by bypassing these intermediaries, this basically implies that at the end of the day, the manufacturer will have to carry out some of these important functions that these intermediaries typically perform, because somebody has to, take responsibility for the functions that these intermediaries perform, such as bulk, breaking bulk, promotions, servicing the customers, promotions, and so forth. So if the manufacturer does not want to use these intermediaries because of some of the issues that we'll be talking about later, because of control issues, because of conflict issues, because of power issues, then the manufacturer will have to take on these responsibilities on their own. We have what's called the distribution triangular approach, or the distribution triangular model. And this model shows you three issues that a manufacturer has to consider when the manufacturer is contemplating on a distribution strategy. And these three are efficiency, effectiveness, and control. So efficiency refers to the fact that the manufacturer has to make their products available in a very cost-effective manner and in a very relative short period of time. So it's more about the cost issue and the speed issue of making products available to the distributor. And at the same time, the manufacturer not only has to be concerned about efficiency, but also about effectiveness in terms of how much market coverage, am I going to make my products available, to everybody in the market through using very wide market coverage, or am I going to make it more exclusive and, not make it as widely available? So it has to deal with effectiveness. Has to do with two parts. The first is about market coverage. And then the second is about the services that needs to be performed. Right? So, if a distributor is going to, if a manufacturer is going to choose a distributor, what types of services do I expect the distributor, the intermediaries, to perform on the products that they're selling to the end consumers? And then the third aspect is control. How much influence, how much clout can I exercise in terms of making my products available to the end consumer by using these intermediaries? So a lot of the times, a manufacturer sells its products to these wholesalers or these distributors, and then in turn, the distributors will make the products available to the end consumer. But most often than not, and unfortunately, the distributors may not have the same goals as the manufacturer in terms of advocating the product to the end consumers. They may not be as supportive, and they may not be as engaged in pushing the product to the end consumer as the direct sales force of a manufacturer would be. Therefore, how much control can a manufacturer exercise in terms of making its products available to the end consumer using distributors? That's a key question that a manufacturer has to consider and has to address. So these three elements, again, efficiency, effectiveness, and control, are three important elements that a manufacturer has to consider when developing a distribution strategy.